Looks like we had somebody else join us, so welcome to our latest attendee. Given that this is a live stream, what we'll ask you to do is post questions into the chat, and then Shannon, who's also on, will help me navigate what's in the chat.
Tracy Nguyen she said, I was wondering about collecting observation hours for next semester. We are supposed to record our hours on the log sheet available on the application, correct? The log sheets from our classes do not count. We have to transfer those hours onto the official log sheet. I'm just a bit confused on how to log hours correctly for the SLPA class next semester.
So Tracy, as it relates to logging hours, when you apply for the SLPA course, there is the option to upload the paperwork that shows completion of observation hours. If you are doing some of those hours on Master Clinician Network, then what you can do is print out MCN's transcript and upload that as part of your materials. If a class has, let's say this is prior to using MCN and you obtained hours and there was a course space observation log, you would go ahead and upload that course space observation log. The only thing you want to avoid is uploading multiple. If it was the same observation, you don't want to upload it on the MCN transcript as well as on a course space log, because we don't want to double count those. So as long as, for SLPA purposes, as long as you are accounting that those hours were completed either in MCN and or done face-to-face and documented on a course-based log, you should be just fine. So hopefully that clarifies. And Shannon, I'm right in that there is a spot on the SLPA application to submit logs, right? Either MCN or course-based?
Yeah, there's a place on the Qualtrics application where you can upload files.
In multiple files, right? They're not just restricted to one file. So what we're looking at when you submit your SLPA application, and again, SLPA applications for spring 21 consideration, so that's this coming spring, are going to be due on Friday, October 30th by end of day, so 11:59 p.m., although we certainly encourage you to get them finished earlier. And you do not have to have all your hours completed by that point in time, but if all your hours are not completed, we ask you to identify your plan for completing them. So let's say you're currently enrolled in anatomy and physiology of speech, and you won't have all 3 of your observations hours done through MCN. You would upload those hours that are completed, and then you'd say, I have 3 hours remaining, and these will be done by the end of the semester because they're required for anatomy and physiology of speech. For students who don't have all 25 hours done, we also have an option then of finishing out the hours on MCN. And the course instructor, Dr. Walsh-Aziz, once she reviews with the committee all the SLPA applications, will follow up with you about that directly. Did you have anything to add, Shannon, about that?
No, but Cameron has a question. When completing the SLPA course, do you have to have all other courses completed as in your bachelor's, or can this be done alongside with completing the remaining requirements?
So good question, Cameron. So you can, if you were a degree seeking student in SLHS, you can enroll or be considered for admission in the SLPA course before getting your bachelor's awarded. However, there are several prerequisite classes that have to be done in advance of the SLPA course. So essentially, the only classes in the SLHS major that can be done concurrent with the SLPA is rehab audiology. So for most students, they're doing the SLPA at the very end of their bachelor's degree, the last semester of their bachelor's degree. But let's say you also have a class in your minor, right? You could certainly complete that class in your minor while also doing the SLPA course. For students who are certificate seeking, though, they come in having a bachelor's degree already. But again, for SLHS degree seeking students, you can do the SLPA course as a part of your plan of study. But the way that the prereqs are organized, you likely are going to be in the last semester of your course plan, because, you know, what's a prereq to SLPA? Speech, sound, and fluency disorders, child language disorders, principles of assessment and intervention. Those are all prerequisites to SLHS 4550. The only course that can be taken as a co-req is rehab audiology. So for folks joining us, welcome. Shannon is navigating and monitoring the chat. So please put any and all questions in the chat and we will get to them. And we're talking about right now SLPA and questions related to the observation hours for SLPA, as well as when in the plan of study can bachelor's students take the SLPA course. I'll also note that Shannon in the live event Q&A posted the link to scheduling an advising appointment. So I'm thrilled that we all can join and you can hear others' questions, at least through Shannon's repeating of them. But if you have more questions, unique questions to you, SLHS faculty have advising appointments throughout the week, in any given week, so please don't hesitate to schedule that. And if you asked a question and you still need clarification, by all means, put follow-up questions in the chat. This will help us get an idea as to frequently asked questions. So what we can do after today's meeting is also put together a document so you have all this information in paper or electronic copy, written copy. So Cameron and Tracy, hopefully that helps. Yeah, go ahead, Shannon.
Now we have Nadine Lee. She says, hello, it's Nadine. Prior to this semester, I had to fill out the leveling certificate form with the courses I wanted to take. Will I have to do the same thing prior to enrolling for the spring semester?
That's a great question, Nadine. So my answer is it's going to depend. So if you did not take the non-SLHS prerequisites at MSU Denver, then you did need us to assist you with registration. So by way of example is speech and hearing science. So speech and hearing science for our bachelor students has as a requirement college algebra or college algebra through modeling. So if you didn't have that come up on an MSU Denver transcript, Shannon then assisted you in waiving that prereq. Language acquisition is another good example of that because it had a non-SLHS prereq. If you are planning on taking an SLHS class that has an SLHS prereq and you already have that prereq, then you yourself can go in and register. So a good example would be child language disorders, 4510. If you've had SLHS 2890 or you're currently taking SLHS 2890, you should have no problem registering for SLHS 4510 because you have the prereq on your transcript or in the system, it will recognize it. The other course oftentimes though that students need assistance getting in is anatomy and physiology of speech. So if you did not complete Human A&P at MSU Denver, and as a leveling student, you're electing to waive that non-SLHS prereq, then yes, you will still need to request registration assistance through Shannon. And Shannon will remind us when she's beginning to accept those leveling requests. I am not certain yet. Shannon, when are leveling requests accepted?
I believe I said it was going to be on October 28th at 12:01 a.m. Let me double check that before
That sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right. So if you do need assistance, again, Shannon will accept those forms and she'll check on that date. But if in fact you have the SLHS prereq, you can register yourself for the course. You don't need our assistance. So hopefully that helps answer that question, Nadine, but if not, don't hesitate to post a follow-up. And Tracy, I'm glad that that helped as it relates to the observation logs.
And yes, it is October 28th at 12:01 a.m. And then anyone who submits something to me prior to that, they'll be processed at the bottom of the pile. So make sure to submit it after 12:01 a.m. on October 28th.
And I'll just follow up and say, if you don't need assistance, if you don't need Shannon to assist with the course prereq and lifting the hold, and your registration window opens October 26th, go ahead and register yourself on October 26th. The October 28th at 12:01 a.m. deadline is just for those courses that you need registration assistance with. We have to allow some priority registration for our degree seeking students, but I don't anticipate there being any challenge with getting into courses come spring. So hopefully, Nadine, that helped answer that question. Good. What other questions are coming up as it relates to spring semester 2021? And I'm happy to talk about process. I'm happy to talk about course delivery mode. And I can also answer questions about the status of our graduate program. I know that sometimes is a advising question that comes up. And those joining us, I'll say again that at the very tippity top of the chat, Shannon posted the URL, the link to scheduling a one-on-one advising appointment with one of the SLHS faculty. So by all means, find a time that works. There's very good availability throughout any given week.
Vesta asks, besides finding an SLP to shadow to get the hours, does the department have an option that recommends SLPs we could work with to achieve the 25 hours?
So good question, Vesta. Right now, my suggestion is going to be to complete those hours through Master Clinician Network. And this is because of the current situation, pandemic related in both educational settings as well as in medical-based settings, that there are no face-to-face observations, one-time observations, given that facilities are really restricting access to all non-essential personnel. So Master Clinician Network, you can supplement and get all of your hours through Master Clinician Network. So again, if you tally your observation hours from previous semesters, so let's say you took a course with me last spring, and as part of that course, you did a face-to-face observation, 2 hours, maybe a face-to-face observation. Those hours certainly count, and you should have the log from me that I signed off on. So those 2 hours count. Let's say then this semester, you're required to do 6 hours of observation through Master Clinician Network. That brings you up to a total of 8 hours. And now you're hoping to get into the SLPA cohort for spring. Well, that would mean you are shy. I have to do some fast math in my head, but that should mean 17 hours are still due. So when you submit your SLPA application, which remember is due the last Friday in October, if you want to be considered for spring, October 30th, you'll submit how many hours you currently have and you'll comment on your plan, what you're going to need to do to get the remaining hours. And what that might be is you saying, I'm going to need to use Master Clinician Network to get the remaining hours. And then the instructor of the course, Dr. Walsh-Aziz, will reach out to those who still have hours, who are accepted into the cohort, and assign you the remaining hours through Master Clinician Network. So the SLPs to shadow right now, that just is not happening given current circumstance. But in short, previous hours count, right? Any face-to-face hours you've done before count. Hours that you're doing in Master Clinician Network are added on to that. And then any amount you are short, we can guarantee you'll get those hours through Master Clinician Network. So hopefully, Vesta, that helps answer that question. If not, please feel free to ask additional follow-up.
Juan Jose says, hello and nice office. And how is SLPA, the course going to work since they can't go to schools to shadow?
So I'll tell you how it's working. Good to see you as well, Juan Jose. And yes, you can see my artwork that I did a few weeks ago when I needed a little brain break. And all the buddies in the background. So we're running SLPA this semester, and it looks different based on the district. So some districts right now, depending on the phase that the district is in, we do have students who are attending sessions. So they are in school. And when I say attending sessions, keep in mind that SLPAs aren't just observing, they're actually delivering sessions. So the SLPA intern is in the school delivering the intervention under supervision of the SLP. Other students, again, it's very dependent on district. Other students are providing services virtually. So both the SLP, the student, and the SLPA intern are participating in telehealth delivery. So that is also working. And so of the 180 hours that are required to be as part of the internship, the SLPA internship, 80 of those hours have to be direct contact, so delivering intervention, and a percentage of that has to be supervised. That supervision can happen face-to-face, or as I noted, that supervision can happen real-time virtually. The other 100 hours that are associated with that internship can be indirect contact. So what that means is you're developing lesson plans and creating materials. So that doesn't require you engaging with the student that you're providing services to, or being supervised by the SLP. And I will also say that we have purchased for students a simulated platform. It's called SimuCase. So if there are a certain number of hours that, you know, the situation presents where students can't even get the hours virtually, we do have the ability to supplement with a simulated client. So Dr. Walsh-Aziz is also working to do that. But I can tell you we have folks, I think 14 this semester that are placed. And the biggest thing is constant communication. I've already been updated that some districts are potentially going back to an earlier stage in the phasing, and we're just adjusting appropriately. So constant communication between you, your supervisor at the school, and Dr. Walsh-Aziz. We'll figure it out. We've been doing it since March, so I'm really optimistic it will continue to unfold as it needs to. So hopefully, Juan Jose, that helps.
And it looks like Tracy Nguyen had a similar question, just wondering for the internship portion, will it be mostly in person or virtual? But I think you answered that.
Yeah, so district dependent, so district dependent. I mean, here's a great example. Some districts, as I mentioned, are talking about going back to an earlier phase where it's more virtual, all virtual. And my daughter just went to her first face-to-face day of 6th grade today. So that was a big deal. October 20th, attending her first face-to-face. So it is so tied to the district. But I will tell you, you have in Dr. Walsh-Aziz, Shannon and you have folks that are in constant communication with school districts. So rest assured that we will continue to do that and have continued dialogue. So hopefully that helps as it relates to answering SLPA internship questions. They're so important, and again, we're flexible as it relates to what the district standards are for therapy delivery, be it virtual or in person, and we have the ability to work with either one. And we're also in lots of communication with CDE, the Colorado Department of Ed, and the SLP liaison, who kind of oversees authorization of SLPAs. So nothing we're doing is being done without involvement of the authorization group within CDE. So we don't want any surprises as it relates to that.
It looks like Cameron is asking, when you are placed for the SLPA, is there consideration in the amount of distance for travel to the school you intern at?
Yes, so we do ask when you are accepted, we give you what's called an internship placement preference form.
Well, remember, that's actually a part of the application now. So they, within the application, you tell us your preference, and then based off those preferences, that's how we place you.
Thank you, Shannon.
Sorry.
So no, please interrupt. So even at the application stage, we want you to be thinking about district placement, right? We can't guarantee that your first preference will be the district we can place you in. And some of that is outside of our control. By way of example, St. Vrain and Boulder Valley do not have SLPAs. They don't use SLPAs in terms of staffing patterns. So if St. Vrain was your first and Boulder Valley was your second, that just can't happen because of the district restrictions. But so long as it's a district that allows SLPAs, which Jeffco, Denver, Aurora, we have a number in the Springs that we have worked with. I'm not going to remember the name of it, but I think it's J12. Again, I can't remember the name, but Brighton District, we have placements there. So yes, we are definitely asking you about district. And then even within a district, let's look at Jeffco. That's a huge district, right? So there's a way for you to drill down and even give us additional information within there. If you have an SLP that works in the schools that has expressed interest in being a supervisor, we certainly welcome you to provide us with the individual's information. We have to get district approval for the supervisor, but we certainly will take any and all recommendations that you have and pursue that. And remember, again, as it relates to travel, it may be that it's done virtually. So that does open up a little bit more flexibility potentially. But yes, you can prioritize district, and then within there's the ability to kind of specify region, especially in those larger districts.
Cameron asks, has a student ever interned at a school that they currently work in?
Yes. So my smile there is it brings up, really that's a bigger conversation with the school personnel and then being able to identify roles and responsibilities. So we don't have any issues with that as it relates to the SLPA course. But it does require, again, just additional communications as to these are the expectations for the SLPA internship. And let's say an individual was working in as a paraprofessional in a classroom, that unless they were doing SLPA activities and being supervised by the SLP, that would be work that's considered outside of the scope of the SLPA class. So again, being able to intern at the school that you currently work at in and of itself is not a problem, so long as there is clear acknowledgement of what you need to be doing to get the credit as an SLPA, right? So even though it might be part of your job description in the school personnel kind of position, you can only be getting credit for those activities that fall under the internship requirements.
Juan Jose has a follow-up to his earlier question. Which school district do you recommend that has a diverse population?
So what I would recommend, Juan Jose, is in the internship preference form that you'll complete and submit as part of your SLPA application, identify if you want to be working at a bilingual school, let's say, and then we can assist within districts like Denver Public Schools, Aurora Public Schools, Jeffco. There are schools that have as a focus instruction, bilingual instruction. So just making note of that will be helpful as Dr. Walsh-Aziz goes to place you. So again, it's within any district, you're going to see opportunities for schools that have, again, bilingual instruction. Like Boulder Valley is the one I know best because that's my local district. And I have a friend who provides services in both Spanish and English because she's at a bilingual school. So note it in your application, and Dr. Walsh-Aziz can certainly then work within that for placement. She also, kind of talking about diverse populations, we can also think about ages. So some folks are interested in high school or working with middle schoolers. So if you're, again, we can't promise that there will be that placement, but most kind of typically when we think about SLPA internships, it's done at a elementary school. In some cases that is K-8, but most typically kind of preschool to 5th. So if you are passionate about working with older kiddos in a secondary school, another really good thing to note in your internship preference form. So really good questions. So hopefully that helps provide some guidance, Juan Jose, with that. More information as it relates to your desired internship site, the better. So that we can, again, can't guarantee that we'll get everything, but we can certainly work towards it as well as we can. And I'll just mention as it relates to the SLPA application, If you haven't already, please go in and start looking at what's required. I wouldn't say it's too onerous or massive of an application, but it's definitely not something that you just sit down and at one sitting kind of nail it all out. Like it does take some thought. You know, we have you make note of your skills and what areas you feel like you are stronger in, and then what areas you need more support in. And so there is some reflection that's required. You have access to that application. It is always available because it's done electronically. And you can go in and you can start it and save and then come back to it later that day or the next day. It obviously has to be fully completed by deadline, which again is Friday, October 30th by 11:59. But I strongly encourage you to approach it in pieces, and then you're making sure you're being as thorough as possible and complete. And Shannon, nothing I said there is wrong, right? In terms of they can go in and start the application, come back to it.
And if you accidentally submit your application too early, don't worry, it happens. Just email me and Shannon, the administrative assistant, and just let me know that you accidentally submitted it too early, and I can send you a link that will allow you to go back in and continue editing your application. Do you want to talk about the kinds of references we're asking for, since that seems to be kind of confusing?
Great question. So letters of reference, I want to make sure that folks are clear what we mean by a reference versus a letter of recommendation, because sometimes we see those two things getting melded together. For SLPA, we are asking you to provide us with, is it 3, Shannon, or 2?
I believe it's 3, but now that you're asking, I am second guessing myself.
So let's say at minimum 2, likely 3. We ask you to provide us with, we'll say minimum 2 names of references. And these references should be folks who have seen you in a work capacity outside of the classroom. So this may be an employer. This could be a principal at a school. This could be if you do child care. This could be the parent that you work with. It could be a faculty member if you are working with them in an additional capacity beyond taking courses with them. So maybe you've been a TA for somebody's class. Maybe you are involved on a research team with a faculty member. But we're really looking to have these references provide information that goes beyond how well did he or she do in the class, because we already have that information through your transcripts. We're looking at those essential skills like responsiveness to feedback, like punctuality. And it's very hard if it was in solely a student teacher framework that we can see some of those essential, what sometimes are called soft skills, but I don't like that term, essential skills as it relates to punctuality, dress, all those things. If we're placing you in the schools as ambassadors of our program, we want to ensure that you're aware of the professional standards. So when you submit your SLPA application, you are simply providing us with the name and contact information, as well as the nature of the relationship, right? Employer, head of a research team, so that we can then reach out to those individuals as needed. There is nothing required of the individuals in advance. So when I say a reference, again, we're talking about name and contact information. That is different than what folks who are applying to graduate school are asking. And that is a letter of recommendation. And in those cases, you need the individual to submit a letter and an application form on your behalf. So for SLPA, again, it's a reference. It's name and contact information that the SLPA committee can reach out to as needed for follow-up. For letters of recommendation for graduate school, that goes beyond, and on our website, we have great information about asking for letters of recommendation. But that would mean if you were thinking about applying and deadline for your grad school is anywhere from December to February, you need to be asking folks now for letters of recommendation. And folks who ask me, I then send them back a packet of materials I need if I agree to provide the recommendation that then they have to provide to me before I would write that letter. So again, reference, name and contact information you give us so that we can call them if needed. Recommendation is a different process, and that's what's required for graduate programs. Shannon,
and, just to confirm it, that for the SLPA application, it's two.
Two references.
Two references.
Yep. So again, this could be employer. This could be if you work on campus, right? If you work in the tutoring center, it could be the your supervisor in the tutoring center. If you are, again, a TA for a course, if you're on a research team, what it can't be is if you have taken diagnostic audiology with me and that's the sole nature of how we know each other, I would not be an appropriate reference for SLPA application. Now, I might be a very appropriate recommender for graduate school. And again, we have information on this in terms of letters of recommendation on the website under our policies and procedures. And hopefully you all went to the letter of intent workshop, but if not, we're working to get the material up on our YouTube channel.
It looks like Juan Jose is saying that the application isn't saving as he's doing it, so if he leaves, he has to start it all over again, which is odd. It shouldn't be happening, but I will look into that because I don't really know what the answer to that question is, besides it shouldn't be doing that. And I'm sorry that it is.
So that's huge for us to know, and thank you for sharing that, Juan Jose. And again, Shannon will look into that. One thought that I have as a workaround until Shannon works her magic would be to answer it in a Word document, and then obviously you can save that, and then you can copy paste it into the field. So
on our website, we do have what are the required components of the SLHS 4550 application. It doesn't ask like what the exact question is on the application, but it is essentially everything you'd need to know that's on the application, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, all the different components of the application are there. And if you know, I guess another thing would be if you know you're not going to finish it, you could always have it open and then again composing answers outside of it in a Word doc or whatever pages, so that you can rest assured that is being saved. But Shannon,
I'll definitely look into why it's not holding for some people. That's odd.
Yeah, that's great. That's huge for us to know, because that's the first we've heard of it. So thank you, Juan Jose. As you may be composing, I'll just give you a quick update on the graduate program, because that's oftentimes of interest to many. So we did make it through our kind of next big benchmark, which was we submitted our application for candidacy to ASHA's accrediting arm on August 1st. And we heard back, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, that they accepted that application and moved us up to the next step, which is the site visit. So applications that they think are comprehensive and well developed, you then can essentially kind of skip a few spaces and get put into the site visit phase. And we are now, that's where we wanted to be, and that's where we now are. Our site visit is going to be held virtually, and we anticipate that's going to be the second week in February. So you will certainly be getting more information about that, because as part of the site visit, there's a public forum that folks are invited to. So this would be where, student voice is so essential in knowing how important this particular program is. And so we will, as soon as I believe I'm going to hear the first week of November when they've decided to schedule the visit. I assure you, you will hear when that public visit is. So once that site visit happens, then the committee submits a recommendation on the committee's behalf. So what I can tell you is all of our kind of benchmarks have continued to be met, such that we are on target for a summer 22 launch. So nothing has occurred that has caused us to extend our anticipated launch out. We cannot publicly announce we have a program starting and submit materials until we are a candidate for accreditation, as well as until we go through the our regional accreditor, who's the Higher Learning Commission. But as I said, we're confident and very excited to report that all of our interim steps have been met on the timeline that we allotted for. So we continue to make excellent progress in a summer of 22 launch. And if that were to, again, all things continuing to go as they are, we would be starting to accept applications very similar to any other institution with a June launch, which would be around, I would say, December of 21. So what I would encourage you to do is just keep your ears and eyes open. You will certainly be among the first to hear when any additional accrediting information comes out. I'll mention again that at the very top of the chat is an invitation to schedule one-on-one advising appointments with SLHS faculty. We have very good variety throughout the week in terms of staffing, so who can assist on what given day. And if for some reason schedule does not permit any of those times, reach out to me and we'll find a time that works. Right, and so see if something it kind of gels with your schedule, and if not, suggest an alternate time, and we'll make it happen. I'll tell you all, and I'll likely share pictures, and some of you, I am guessing, haven't really ever seen the SLHS physical space, but some of you know Classroom Central 114 very well, having been in there sometimes 8 hours in any one given day. That is under complete construction. I'm going in tomorrow for a few hours to look at progress and furniture fabric swatches. But 114 and that radio booth is now completely gutted, and we're going to have 4 individual therapy spaces, as well as a conference room for things like the Isaac program. And we're sharing this functional workspace with Com Studies. Com Studies is going to launch a communications center. So we'll be using that hopefully sooner as opposed to later for a clinic, both undergraduate and grad students. And what was the computer lab across the I almost said across the street, across the hall from 114 is now going to be the primary classroom space. And we're trying to make that be a high flex classroom. So we also have the ability to deliver lectures virtually while some students are participating face to face. So even though we haven't been in the space very much, the space is transforming during this time away. So I'm excited for when we all can come back and see all the changes that have happened. My office is as messy as ever, however, so that does not change.
Tracy says that it sounds exciting.
It really is. It is super exciting, Tracy. You know, I'm very proud of just how far our small but mighty department, and that's faculty, staff, and students, just how much we've done over the last, gosh, 18 months of being a department. That's feels like a lot longer of being a standalone department, but there's really exciting things ahead. And I hope, given that we're kind of 2/3 through the semester, I hope you all are taking time to take care. Please reach out as needed. There are fabulous resources on campus, and by saying on campus, I mean run by campus offices virtually. So, you know, if it's a matter of needing time to practice mindfulness meditation, there is classes being offered virtually. If it's a matter of talking to others who are trying to navigate, you know, the demands of young kids at home and your own schoolwork, know that there are opportunities that exist, and you know, any and all SLHS faculty and staff would be more than willing to connect you to those resources. And Shannon does a fabulous job on our social media, and hopefully you are all monitoring or checking in on that social media, where she provides wellness tips that are also important.
Do we want to answer the one last question and then we'll log off?
Let's do it.
Cameron was wondering, for chemistry requirements, is it Principles of Chem, so Chem 1100, or is it Gen Chem, Chem 1800?
As long as it's a college level chemistry or physics class, it does not matter. So either is my answer there. So ASHA requires at the college level either a chemistry or physics course. So they do not specify beyond that. So either one of those would work.
All right. Well, I think that was the end of our advising hour. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thanks, Shannon, and hope all continue to do well and reach out with questions.
Yes, please do.